Please rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Welcome to our new dates. Okay, we'll begin with the approval of the September meeting minutes. Clark, who normally is our scribe that reviews those, he's not able to join us today. He did message and said he had reviewed and gone over the minutes with Britt, and that all looked correct to him. So I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. Make that motion. We have a motion by Mike. Do I have a second? Second by Jake to approve the September 13th meeting minutes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Your hand, you're off. I was off. Okay. So motion carries 5-0 with Jeff abstaining. Community Corrections Report, Brett Barton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning we had 84 clients on our program, 4 on CTP, we have 5 juveniles and 1 on pretrial release. We're still waiting on the findings from our fiscal audit. Should be coming shortly. We did have a site visit from DOC last week, and we did get some glowing remarks on that, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
Any questions on anything?
Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Short and sweet, like that. You have in your packet the report from Nancy, another good fiscal month for the juvenile detention costs. So let's hope we can finish that out here with 2 more of those. Which brings us to new business. We have Judge Moeller on the agenda with the part-time interpreter position.
Did everybody get the email, or do I need to kind of start from the beginning?
Start from the beginning.
Okay. Both courts right now have interpreter needs for our different hearings, and so primarily we use Grace Barton. We have another lady, Karen Garza, that we do use, but Grace has been our primary translator for several years here. We use her right now kind of on an as-needed basis. We've got certain times that, for Judge Hunter particularly, he has a higher volume of the cases that need that. He'll have her scheduled for certain days, but then a lot of it is kind of an as-needed basis. In addition to what we use in court, those same clients, if they qualify, may need translation services when they meet with their attorneys outside of the courtroom to work on their cases. And so we provide that service also. They just submit that as part of their bill. Grace had an opportunity, or has an opportunity, to get a more full-time position with the high school. And so she came to us. She would like to stay with us in the court system, but would like more hours and maybe a little bit more regular schedule. So we put our heads together to try to figure out what we could do to accomplish that, because we really want to keep Grace. She's done a great job with us and is very comfortable, has done a good job getting all the court lingo down. She's helped with translating some of our documents and forms, so we really like to keep her. So what we have come up with, or what our request would be a more permanent part-time position for Grace, something that would be maybe 3 days a week. We looked at maybe 9 to 3, where we could have set hours that she would always be available, would help both courts with their scheduling, and would help with her having a more consistent schedule. And that would then also allow her to continue working with the attorneys outside the courtroom if they need her for meetings with their clients, for depositions, things like that. Would give them a more consistent schedule to work with on that also. To fund this, what our proposal is to use the interpreter funds that are already in both my budget and Superior Court budget. Superior Court's amount for the year is $12,500. My amount for the year is $5,200. And so we would be able to pledge most of those. We still have to leave a little bit for times if Grace was on vacation or unavailable, but we could use most of those funds for that yearly amount. Right now, we also use some funds for that come from the community corrections user fees to pick up when she's helping with probation and community corrections. That's the other thing that she does. If those same clients, after we're done working with them, they are on probation or community corrections, we've got to provide translation services there. So with those three sources, we think we could pay for everything. The other benefit that it would do would be also have somebody on pretty regular hours at the courthouse for other offices. So if there's a need in the treasurer's office or the auditor's office or at a commission meeting for translation, we would have somebody that could be available kind of county-wide to provide those translation services. And we think with kind of the demographics of our community, that's something that would be a benefit to everybody. So we think this would be good for everybody. We were looking at approximately 18 hours a week at about 3 days a week. We haven't got all those details ironed out, but it'd be about 18 hours a week. We were looking at a total cost that'd be about $21,000 per year. And so we think the majority of that would come from what we already have budgeted in both Superior and Circuit Court translator accounts. The additional money could come from the user fees from community corrections. So it should not be any change to the county general budget. But it would also give somebody available in the courthouse. If there's times she's not in court, she's not serving offices, there, we've got documents that can be translated, a lot of things like that for us and other offices if they need that. She's done some of that for my court already, but there's other things we could do, and that'd be a benefit also. Space-wise, I know we're looking down the road at readjusting some spaces as we get the annex building done, but for right now, we can put her in Circuit Court. I've got room for an additional desk. I've already got an extra computer. So really all we would need would be a phone line, and we could get that up and going. So I shared this kind of came up very quickly. We wanted to move on it quickly. I have, through an email, shared this with the commissioners, and we got positive responses from all three commissioners. I think they would be on board with this. I'll certainly present it to them also, as it would be considered a new hire, but I think they're on board with that concept also. So hopefully it's something that will benefit everybody. We can accomplish it without any impact actually on the general budget, and we've got space and a computer ready for it. I would like to see it start maybe as of November 1, if that's something we could do. For this year, between the two courts, we've got about $6,000 left in our interpreter budget, so I think we could make it through the rest of the year without any problems with our current budgets.
Britt, do you see any issue administratively or logistically on having this one person that's going to get paid from the three sources? Do we need to pick a budget and move the money to one spot, or can it be paid through the three?
It can be paid through the three.
Okay. Okay. Any questions regarding the need or the plan? Judge Moore included me on that email that he referenced to the commissioners, and I did respond back, but I didn't see any physical reason why we could move forward with this, that it would be, whether the commissioners felt space-wise. And they did all respond positively. So. With that being said, I'd like to have a motion of support for the creation of the, we'll call it the full-time, part-time, that's the way we were referring to it, but the more permanent part-time position for the court interpreter. A motion by Jeff, is a second by John to support the request by the courts. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you, Judge. So I'll get in front of the commissioners. We'll go through the same process there, and hopefully get that started by the first of the month then.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you. What's my motion about November 1st?
Would you like me to add that?
Okay, yes, that's got you. Okay, next item, Sheriff Kelly.
Sir.
Commissary contract.
Probably the most important thing is that the contract's been
On the shelf.
on the shelf, and we've had the same services provided for over a year now, and without compensation to that person that's managing, which is actually Kelly. So we got to figure something out. We have to, so that we can continue the fantastic program that's there, providing the relief for the county, and we don't, I'm not going to go back through the history of it, but it does pay for a lot that takes away that need for the county general to take care of. We're talking about kitchen supplies, things like that, large purchases for the appliances, all that good, the great things that are there that we can take care of, from body armor to uniforms to quite a bit. So That's what we have to get to. And I know that attorneys have that in their hands, and I think that, you know, we need to bounce that off of them. You know, we need to put this to rest and move forward.
I think with Judge Person's clarification that came out, you know, just last week,
Yes.
we all know the rules of the game now, which I think was the first step that had to happen. But the council does play a role. We do have to approve the funding that's included in the contract, but I do believe that the commissioners still have to sign the contract.
Right.
So I agree with you 100% that we need to, it's time to get this.
Right, so you know, hopefully we can get something hammered out before the end of next month's meeting and get that done. I would like to see it done. I know that you guys would too. So we put this behind us and move forward. And you know, that's something that I don't want to see the services lag or a change in the service that happens there. And you know, I'll give you the simple reminder that if we go to a private company that does that, we are going to be well over that 50% money that's going to be expended on just the service alone. So, you know, that's what I want to remind everybody, that we've got a great program. We've done a lot of great things with it. And, you know, and we are the arrears thing, the paying the arrears. We just need to get that closed down, move forward.
And to me, that's an important issue. We know with any position,
Yes.
we can't have somebody working without getting their compensation. So we need to get it figured out.
So I'll expect all of the email, come by, stop by, talk. Let's get to this without having to pay somebody else to do the talking for us. I just feel like we need to shut that door. The expenditures going out at this point are ridiculous, and there's no more need for it. And let's sit down and talk about that.
I appreciate the offer.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, primary purpose of the meeting today is to approve the budget that we worked so hard on in August and September. I shouldn't say that. This was the easiest budget year we've had in a long time. Thanks to the department heads who did the heavy lifting and gave us such a good budget to review. We have three separate ordinances we need to approve. The first one is the primary county budgets. The second would be the Wildcat Solid Waste District, and the third would be the Franklin County Airport Authority. So the first of those is ordinance 2022-11. And I think for the record, I do want to read the budgets included and their totals. The general fund budget of $12,354,872. The reassessment budget, the assessor's reassessment budget of $293,534. The county wheel tax budget, $737,645. Cumulative courthouse, $239,200. The highway budget, $3,458,429. Local road and street, $422,000. Cumulative bridge, $786,000. The health department budget, $406,034. The 911 budget, $813,193. The EMS budget, $3,157,244. Cumulative capital development, $203,000. And our economic development seated budget, $1,045,275, for a total of the budgets on this ordinance number 2022-11 of $23,916,426. So that's almost all of those pages in our budget book that we've gone through twice now. Any department heads have any last minute questions, adjustments? That's the same budget as we left at the end of September. No changes. I think, yes, sir.
I just didn't hear ours.
Well, that's a good question. So the jail and the sheriff's department budget are in the general fund. The lit budget is not in here though. Do we need the lit budget?
Turn the page, those are home rule.
Okay, there's more.
So these are what the state does not keep track of. All the others they keep track of.
But I'm gonna go down that list too. So central dispatch, 963. So the other was 911. Let me clarify. The first one was 911.
Yes.
This one's central dispatch, 963,462. At Public Safety, $1,056,425. The CASA budget, $28,607. Surveyor's Corner Perpetuation Fund, $25,000. Surveyor User Fee Fund, $23,250. The Lit Correctional Facility, $1,476,942. Clerk's Record Perpetuation, $20,000. Federal Inmate Housing, $1,623,303. The 2021 road lease bond payment, $442,000. The 2020 sewer and water bond lease payment, $687,000. Identification security protection budget, $27,905. Plat book maintenance, $43,513. The recorder's records perpetuation, $132,955. Adult probation administration, $137,822. Landfill tipping fee, $1,352,889. And traction deferral, $41,000. Total of those home rule funds, $8,082,073. That should cover it. Thank you for pointing that out. Now, any questions, comments? Yes, Ashley.
Just for clarification for department heads and county employees, you are approving the budget with the 10% employee raises.
That is correct.
Thank you. And also, any other item that this would have to go through for the understanding of county employees, that commissioners still need to approve the salary ordinance, correct?
Well, we approve the salary ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I planned on discussing this when you called for department heads. And if you want me to wait till then, that's fine. But I was going to ask or kind of prepare you guys that I may be asking for additional funding in the paramedic program line item. Because we just got back from the accreditation conference, and as we learned much more about the process, we learned that there is going to be additional legwork on our end that we weren't expecting. And it's a full-time job for just about everybody else that is there. And Dolores has pretty much said, you know, I'll contribute my time, but as we're there and everybody, we're sitting with deans from universities, and she's like, well, this doesn't seem like I'm going to be compensated for my work. So I was going to discuss whether you.
So if you're not 100% certain what that number would be yet,
Okay.
then let's approve the budget as it is here. We'll have to make a change at this point. We'll require an additional appropriation anyway.
Okay.
So let's just know what we're appropriating. We can discuss that at a future point in time.
Sounds
If
great.
that works for you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, but thank you for bringing it up and letting us know. Okay, so with all of that being reviewed, I would entertain a motion on ordinance 2022-11. Everybody, Jeff. I've got Jake with the motion, and I think I heard Joe with the second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0 on the county's budget. For the Wildcat Creek Solid Waste District, that is a budget of $320,000. That Clark and his board will administer.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2022-12.
For solid,
For solid
Wildcat Solid Waste. All those, okay, I have a motion by Jeff, second by Mike. All of those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0 as well. And then last in the budgets is the Frankfurt Clinton County Airport. That budget is $1,275,965. The airport board will administer. Motion passed. I have a motion by Jake. Second by John. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. All right, and with that, we conclude another budget year. Exciting. We have one other item of new business, and that is we need to create a new ordinance. As Jordan has updated us on a couple of times, the state took part in the, well, it's been over a year now, the opioid settlement with the pharmaceutical industry, and the state got a significant chunk of money as a part of that settlement, and local communities were given an opportunity to join that settlement. We did, and so we get a portion of that distribution. And as a part of the state legislation that governs the distribution of those funds, we are required to establish a fund to receive those monies. And part of the reason it's going to be a restricted fund because the statute that allows us to get the money also has strings attached. There are limits on what the money can be spent for, and that is reflected in this statute. So the title of it is an ordinance of the Clinton County Council of the State of Indiana for the creation of a non-reverting fund for the collection of restricted monies received from the opioid settlement agreement. And basically, the restrictions are identified in this ordinance as they're referencing the restrictions in the state legislation. They're not listed one by one here. They're just referenced the documents from the state that tell how we're limited in our use. But it needs to be for treatment, recovery programs, those kinds of things for opioid addiction. So we need to get this set up because we're ready to start receiving our first distribution. We need a place for the money to be received into.
We have an ordinance number, 14 cents.
Yeah, that's right. Do I have a motion to approve? Or feel free to discuss or ask questions. That's a fairly straightforward fund document. Okay, I have a motion by Jeff to approve, second by John to approve the ordinance. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. So that money will start going in, and then we will discuss its uses at a later time. Okay. So there's 3 of them. Okay, additional appropriations. Starting in the general fund. $3,905.82, which is a insurance check that we received that we're reimbursing. Actually, it's going to Paul Philippi if it's for damage sustained to one of the Paul Philippi vans that's titled under the county. $19.92 from Parkview Home for our rebate for the group purchasing organization that we're a part of. So that's a total from county general of $3,925.74. Sheriff's Department Accident Report Fund, $550.05 for a crash reconstruction camera. Cumulative Bridge Fund, 2 bridges we need to appropriate some money for. One is bridge number 104 for $43,500 for a restoration project. And then the big one is we did have get the federal contract let out for bridge number 67. And so our 10% share of that bridge reconstruction is $162,546.39. Some good leverage of our local money. From Lit Public Safety, we received a reimbursement from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for $502.43 for some overtime reimbursement for Lieutenant Rattlebush. From the Sheriff's Gifts Fund, $100 was received from Linda Funeral Home for the Motor Patrol escort for Leroy Goods funeral. And then we also received $1,350 from Indiana Packers for the AED equipment purchase, the defibrillator. From the landfill, $10,000 that we are adding to our new social services line for the Clinton County Boys and Girls Club. I know we have Susie with us. I don't know if you wanted some time to address
If
the
you have
council, or if
any-
you were just here for questions.
If you have any questions for me.
Josh updated us last month
Mhm.
about the request. We did talk about it for next year's budget, but he also made it clear that the request was to begin immediately for 2022. So this would be to give some additional funding to that social services line item for the commissioners to approve. And let me, before I move on, anybody have any questions while we have Susie here? Okay. We did get a fairly thorough update, so
Good.
I appreciate you coming. Okay, surveyor's office from the user fee fund, $171.48 to reimburse us for an engineering invoice. From the infraction deferral fund, $5,000 for needed law enforcement equipment. From the federal inmate fund, $45,000 for legal fees. From the probation state grant, $18,151.71. This is to appropriate the remaining state fiscal year 2021 funds to the state fiscal year 2022 budget. County Highway Department, you'll recall that each year we apply for $1 million community crossings grant. We receive that money into the community crossings fund, and now we're appropriating it for its use, $1 million. And then also, we received a reimbursement for the 20, I'm not sure of the details, and Rick, if you care to speak with it, you can. We received a refund of $37,346.31 from the 2018 project that we are now appropriating for use on the 2022 project. Okay. Any questions on any of those? Let's see. What ordinance number is that one? 15. Is that 15? Okay. So I will entertain a motion for ordinance 2022-15 for the slate of additional appropriations. A motion by Joe, second by Jay to approve those additional appropriations. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We do have a handful of transfers this month. As we start to approach the end of the year, those will become greater in number, I suppose. Area Plan Commission, $600 from overtime to part-time. And $250 from area plan computers and peripherals to fuel and oil. Parkview Home, $1,000. I'm not sure what that abbreviation is for the from line item.
I think repair possibly.
Yeah, it looks like it could have farm repair. I bet that's what that is. Yeah, to our dairy products, the dairy products for the facility line item. We needed $1,000 there to finish the year. Also at Parkview, $840 from our fire alarm line item to the household items line item. EMS, $40,000 from paramedic part-time to the EMS overtime as we kind of get that budget all in the right place. County Highway, we have several driver positions that we're making very small $3 to $10 adjustments on. There's, I don't know if that's total, but there's 10 drivers altogether with very minor adjustments to correct the proper salary. Recorder's office, $630 from the Recorder's Perpetuation Fund to extra help. And Central Dispatch, $4,000, I'm sorry. $4,000 from part-time to overtime. And then $8,000 from the dispatcher line item to overtime. Probation again on the state grant, $9,750 from the grant balance to the probation, or from, what is MRT? You know?
It's a training program.
That's a training from that training program line item to the probation officer salary line item to finish the year. And that is the slate of transfers that require our approval. A motion by Dick, a second by Mike to approve those transfers. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That motion carries 6-0. We have in our packet the monthly financial statement from the auditor that we like to have our records show has been received and presented for our review.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Make a motion that we've received.
I'll make a motion that we receive it.
Okay. Have a motion by Jeff to let the record reflect that we received that report. Second by Mike. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0 as well. Any council reports since we last met in September?
Alan, let me pass this down to you as an invitation to the council
Okay.
from Healthy Communities for their annual appreciation
Okay.
dinner at the end of the month.
Okay. We have one commissioner in the room. Any commissioner report?
Nothing that I have that the guys have passed on, so everything seems to be status quo.
Okay, very good. The department heads need time with council. Yes, sir.
A few things.
Okay.
So first, I already touched base. We attended the accreditation conference in Denver this last week. I kind of just want to lay out and explain to the council kind of what the country is seeing in terms of accreditation for paramedics as well as the status of paramedics throughout the country. So there are 50 other programs throughout the country that are county-based or government-based, and so out of 700 plus. So we're about 7% of that we're looking for. There are ways that they really support us to get to the accredited status, so I really do believe that this is a feasible process for us. We're waiting to hear back from IU for our clinical site agreement, which is a part of the process, and then we also have a contact for a college to grant us an articulation agreement where our students that graduate the program will receive college credits towards an associate or bachelor's degree. We met a individual from Missouri who has a program in rural Missouri, and they serve 13 counties surrounding them. And throughout those 13 counties, they are short 260 paramedics. They daily are shutting down. They're supposed to be running 4 trucks a day. He said, we're always running our skeleton crew of 6 people per day. So I know that we talked in August, something that's been brought up is, how is our staffing? So at the very end of September, we hired another paramedic, and that brought us to 14 out of 14 paramedics. And we've since had one resign due to a $47,000 pay difference between another job in Southern Indiana. So I can't blame him for that. But so we'll continue to try and fill that void. But I really do believe for sustainability of EMS, especially county-based EMS, a paramedic program is the way to go. There are no other county-based services in the state of Indiana that have a paramedic program, so we'll be the first of our kind. And but between Dolores and myself, I think we've got the means to make it happen. So I just want to kind of spell that out. And I've already told you I'm going to be asking for an additional appropriation. I think we're going to have to put additional funding into, to see the return of this. So the OT line item, this is something that we've kind of been looking at. So the way we currently have it budgeted is that we just take it, all the 16 hours of overtime per pay is taken out of the salary line item and not the overtime.
Yes.
The way that it's been getting submitted recently is through the actual overtime. So I went back and I looked, and like each year, that's $30,000 to $40,000 that we're inflating our overtime budget because we weren't taking out of that line item. With the new time clock system, we're kind of looking at it. How is this feasible for us to make sure we're taking it? We're gonna have to go back 2 pay periods every time to make sure that we're getting the correct overtime brought over, because the people that work on Fridays, they have that 7-hour gap between midnight and 7 a.m. So we have to go back and fill it. So I guess I'm asking you, do you want us to continue to deduct it from the line item, the overtime line item, and transfer it, or what are your thoughts? I'll tell you what's easiest for me is just doing the overtime line item, but.
I would defer to the auditor's office on that, but I understand what you're saying. And I know that, to me, it doesn't matter as long as we understand what we're doing. And I think there'd been confusion before on how we were handling it. Am I right? Or there had maybe been inconsistency, I should say, maybe in how we had handled it.
The most important thing is to make sure that our time clock reflects what's submitted as in hours and the pay. Where you take it from, it doesn't.
What Stephen is referring to is that on their base scheduling, they have a 96-hour pay period, whereas overtime is triggered at 80. So just in their base schedule, there's 16 hours of overtime that we have to allow for. And we had been building that into their base wage line item, the paramedic salary line item. But maybe it's more appropriate that we take that 16 hours and we put it in the overtime budget because for tracking purposes.
Cecily said do it however is easiest for you, but I know I just asked for a transfer of 40,000 and I wanted to explain that's kind of where it's coming from is we're losing this money into, it's inflating our overtime budget when really it's just the salary.
Gotcha.
I think as long as you recognize that, it's fine to take it out of overtime.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then last thing for me, collections agency, we talked about that in August. We have signed on with New World Collections out of Indianapolis, and they have a 25% fee for everything they collect. As I presented in August, I think, if I remember right, it was $638,000 some dollars that we have outstanding. And there has been no penalty previously for not paying your bill. So working with the collection agency, I think we might see some of that.
Good.
Yeah. That's all I have. Any questions?
Questions for Stephen? Thank you for the update.
Thanks.
Any other department heads? Liz?
Yeah, two things. First off, just some information. I think council's pretty aware of the fact that we've just been crucified on our fuel and oil line item because as it turned out, our fuel pricing was not locked in with the rest of the counties and honestly probably never was in hindsight. We moved to having county vehicles in 2014. And so it must have been at that point that it didn't get properly associated and it took until these crazy fuel prices for us to realize something was really out of line. So I've pretty well cannibalized everything in my 03 line item. So I turned into the auditor's office a request for additional appropriation that should come to you next month, but it's large for what I asked for. I think I put 2,000 in, but the goal is that it would cover all the remaining fuel through the end of the year as much as I can estimate, assuming prices stay somewhat consistent. So I'm not coming in with $200, $300, you know, like constantly asking for additional. So I just wanted to give you a heads up as to that. And then we are now locked in for next year. So starting in January, we'll be with the rest of the county departments. And our budget that we requested for 2023, wow. As far as we can calculate based on usage this year should be adequate to cover our fuel locked into the county rate. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew when you see that and you're like, oh, where'd this come from? As it's really unusual for us to ask for those kinds of things, but it's just been a difficult, we're getting almost $1,000 a month fuel bill when normally that would be like a $500 a month. So, so just kind of one of those things I wanted you to know. And then the second item, I don't know if anybody else has said it, but on behalf of my office, and I would like to thank the council for your work and your consideration of county employees in the 10% raise. I know that that is a huge number and everybody worked together to try to meet that. But it is highly unusual. In my 15 years as a government employee here, plus my years with Purdue and with Indianapolis Public Schools before that, I have never seen that kind of consideration given to employees. We're all feeling the pinch. I think this year inflation may even be bigger than what it was the year before, you know, so having that little bit of relief, knowing that that's a very unusual action and may not be able to be repeated, but it just helps even the field a little bit for everybody to survive with less stress. I know my staff are ecstatic and very relieved. So I feel like it's very appropriate to express a great amount of gratitude for your willingness to consider employees and what we're dealing with. I'm sure you guys are as well in your personal budgets, but to actually do something about it. And I think it's very unusual both for government and private industry to take that kind of move. So thank you. And I just felt like somebody should say that, so.
Thank you, Liz. Anybody else? Rodney?
Just real quick, I was unable to attend last month's meeting, and I was on vacation rarely, but I want to thank y'all for approving all that you did to help us keep moving along. As I had turned in reports on all the grants, most specifically all the COVID-related grants that we had completed and did audits of each and every one of those through records from the auditor and our own. I did come up with one invoice that had gotten missed for about $248 that we rebilled the state and got just paid recently. We also received $54,000 additional dollars that came in for additional COVID administration fees. I think that brings us up to about $422,000 that we've received thus far, and we are still giving COVID vaccines, which that I think up until December we'll still be receiving payments on that when it stays. So just to let you guys know how that's coming along.
Great. All right. Appreciate the update. Thank you. Last call. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Where you all?